Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Facts and Fatherhood. I'm your host, Demetrius, and listen, I am glad to be here with you once again. I'm always excited to be able to have the opportunity to come to you with more great content, with things that will help you as our goal is on this podcast. Our main goal is to help other men love being fathers the way that I love being a father. All right. We're working together as partners just to be able to do the job that is before us and raise wonderful children. And I am so grateful to have you with me on the journey. Some fun. We're getting some really sight. We're really learning some really good things. And so today is going to be no different. I have a very special guest with me today that I'm going to tell you about in share and subscribe to this podcast. I'm going to need you to make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that you hit that notification bell so you can know when we have new episodes that are coming on. Now, remember, our podcast airs every single Saturday at 12 noon. That's our main spot, 12 noon at the kingdompurposetv.com. You can go there. But good news, we are now expanding and we're about to be available all over the stratosphere. I'm gonna say it like that, y'all. We're about to be available all over. Distribution is picked up, and so now we're getting ready to be on Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio and all of those places in an audio format, nonetheless. And then, of course, you can always go to our website, which is www.factsandfathers.com, as well as over to our YouTube page. So there's all of these spaces for you to subscribe to our content and be a part and keep up with what we have going on. And you always know that I am here and I am a level of fatherhood you're on if you're just entering into the journey of fatherhood, or, or you still got you got a lot of years up under your belt and you're now a grandfather, which by the way I am so excited to be. Our grandson is turning one real soon, and I am so happy, glad, and so we're looking forward to being able to resource that's going to be coming really soon. The release date for our book is coming up really soon, so you don't want to miss that exciting opportunity to be able to grab that book, get it in your hands, and let's start to build the things that we need to build. This is called Like Arrows in My Hand. All right. I want you to be able to get your hand on this book. And so stay tuned and listen to us as we are going to be soon presenting to you the release date for Like Arrows in My Hands. You definitely want to get that. All right. And don't forget, go to the website, www.factsandfathers.com. Over to the store. There's some great merchandise over there. We've got hoodies, we've got caps, we've got cups, we've got tees, we've got all those like that with a really great message on it. A lot of that product is done, as we tell you all the time, as a remembrance of my father. Some of the statement stuff that he used to make. More popular, the statement, "Don't let the devil fool you." So I'm so grateful for that opportunity that we have to be able to honor him. Well, the guest that we have today is a guest. He is named Nathaniel Turner. That's his name. That's his name. And you know what? I'm really glad to have him on the podcast today. You're going to really enjoy this session, this discussion that we're going to have with him. He is referred to as the humanity propulsion engineer. right? That's a lot to say. And he's gonna explain to us, what this is all about as we get into our conversation. But he has so different things going on in his life. He's into law, he's into finance, he's into all kinds of different things. But the main thing he's into is helping other individuals to be able to build a blueprint for their lives. Now, as men, as fathers, we definitely need to be able to have a blueprint for our lives. We definitely need to be able to provide vision for our families and all those sort of different things like that. So I'm grateful to have him on. I'm going to let him talk to you a little bit more about what he does and who he is. So everybody, do me a favor and just help me welcome to the Facts and Fatherhood podcast, Mr. Nathaniel Turner. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, and you. Thank you, brother, for having me. I appreciate all the energy. So, like, I can only have energy too. I got to give it back to you. Again, I'm sure we'll talk about who I am. I would just say simply, I am the son. Since we're talking about fathers, I am the son of Tommy L. Turner. I mean, that's who I am, and people who know me, hopefully, will know my father, because I am the fruit of his tree. So I'm going to stick with that for now, but that's who I am. I'm Nathaniel A. Turner. I'm the son of Tommy Turner and now the father of Naeem Turner. That's who I am in relation to being a father. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's any relation, or if if there's any relation, but it's so interesting that name Turner. I kind of think
Yes.
about it while we're in the midst of Black History Month. I think about that name Turner, and it's a significant name.
Absolutely.
There's
Nat
just some
Turner.
connection there with that.
I am intentionally named after him.
Absolutely.
So the story goes a little like this. My mother is a woman of faith, and my parents. I was born in 1965, so my father. It's interesting because Jesse Jackson just passed, and so I'd be remiss not to say that gone is a father that inspired my father in terms of what he wanted to teach me about being a Black man. So in 1965, I'm born in Gary, Indiana, which is at the time kind of the center for things that are going on with Black folks in America. People are convening in Gary. Richard Hatcher, Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, Dr. King, and others. And so my father's hero was Malcolm X. And Malcolm X died a few months before I was born. My father wanted to name me Malcolm. My mother was like, absolutely not, right? Absolutely not. So my mother wanted to give me a Christian name, and she wanted to name me. So they debated on what that name would be. And my father, being who my father was like, okay, well, we could name him Nathaniel, because my father was thinking about the revolutionary Nat Turner. My mother was thinking about the gift of God. So so I was named after him. And when you live in a place like Gary, which at the time was, the city with the first Black mayor of a large city, everywhere you go in Gary as a child, every school door that you walk into, every teacher asks you, "Do you know who you are?" So I spent the bulk of my childhood writing and doing research papers on Nat Turner. There was no escaping. Every Black History Month, my job was to tell who Nat Turner was. Other people can talk about other folks, but nope, you got to talk about who you named after. So yeah, it's an intentional name. It's a heavy name, but it's a name that I honor.
Wow.
And hopefully, if Nat Turner is looking down, he can say I'm carrying on the name in a righteous way.
Wow. That's interesting. I thought about that, and I was like, wow, Nat Turner. Wow. Okay. So it's good to know that there's definitely a connection there. I figured there had to be somewhere down the line that there had to be a connection. So tell us a little bit more about what you do, and just tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here, and all the things. We really about how we got to this point where you became let me get it right. Let me get it right. Where you became again, as we call the the human propulsion engineer. I really am curious. How'd you get to this point? Tell me your story.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna try to give you the short version of this story. We've talked about the beginning, right? We talked about the beginning, which is the name that I have. If you
Mhm.
unpack who Nat Turner was a humanity propulsion engineer. If you unpack your faith, you could say Jesus is a humanity propulsion engineer. The ideal for all of us, I would imagine, that's the way I look at it, is that our time on this planet is to do a couple things. Number one, humanity certainly implies empathy. It implies a care for something greater than oneself, the human species. Propulsion is to move forward or move upward. That is hopefully our goal, that we live a life that when we're done, this planet that we're on is better for having us been here than not worse. And engineering are simply tools, techniques, and strategies to make the propulsion of humans possible. In essence, we're all born to be that, but we don't necessarily realize that that's the call or the task on our life. Again, when you have the name Nathaniel Turner or Nat Turner, you you find yourself moving steadily forward in that journey. From the time you leave high school, from the time I left high school and I went to college at Butler University and landed on a campus that was predominantly white or 38 students of color there. I shouldn't say four women and I galvanized and started the Black Student Union there. So a school that had no presence of Black folks and nobody doing no Black fraternities, no sororities, no student organizations that represented people of color or people from different walks of life. We formed that in 1984, right? So you keep moving forward. I go to law school and my objective is to become a civil rights or a human rights attorney. I get a master's in theology. My thought was, hey, maybe I will do something that's never been done in the Black church. Have we ever had a lawyer, a person who also understands finance? I'm also an accountant and understands the word in this way to be able to lead. So I thought maybe I'll do that. And I spent a small bit of time in the pulpit. And then my wife told me that we were expecting, and I didn't want to be a father, and realized because of my relationship with my father that I didn't want to be a dad. But I saw a movie called The Lion King and realized that, hey, here's a guy, a lion, and he's raising a child, a cub, to propel him forward to be a king. And so, again, the humanity propulsion continues, but you're not thinking about it in terms of engineering. 16 years later, that child of mine looks at me as he's preparing to lead the country because he's been prepared. His mom and I will talk about this plan that we put in place for his life. He says to me as he's getting ready to go, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he says, "Well, why?" I said, "Because you've gotten here much faster, right? Much faster than I could have ever imagined." And he looks at me and he says, "Well, what are your dreams?" And I'm like, "I don't have any. You were my dream. The dream was to get you where you needed to be." And he says, "Well, Dad, it's not too late. You still have time. You can do more." And so that sort of
Wow.
begins this otration of being a humanity propulsion engineer. Because my son told me to share with other families the very things that I'd done for him, so that other mothers and fathers could show their children how to live a life that was equal or greater than his.
Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy. Um, I'm really it moving on because all of our children, we have three, and all of our children are, into adulthood. And the interesting thing about us, we had uh, a son, and then right behind that son, the very next year on the same day, we had Set
Wow.
Boy Wins. It was like together, where all the different sports and all that stuff like that, and we're back and forth in football and baseball and basketball and volleyball. It just all seems to run together. And we literally went from that to everybody making the transition. We have one that graduates high school. We actually homeschooled.
Okay.
School. And then the next two, the very following year, they graduate high school. And then boom, 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 everybody's gone, right? Everybody's leaving at the same time. And I often use this example to say to my I just say this to my children. I say, hey man, you are going to, and I like to use this expression, you blink your eyes. This is what it seems like life is. It's like you're here one moment and then you blink your eyes and then you're all the way in somewhere else, right? And I told them, I said, you're going to blink your eyes, you're going to be in adulthood. And I'm saying this to them the whole time, you know, thinking to myself, man, they're really going to grow. And it seems like it's going a long time, but then no, it doesn't go a long time. They bloom. They're there, right?
Yeah,
And you know, you experience the moment of vulnerability. Yeah. And it was funny because I kind of entered into this space around the same time. It wasn't through a conversation with the children, but it was through just kind of thinking back and really reflecting on, you know, and here's the other thing. You start to discover after going through doing all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's no up and down the road to the baseball game, then back, you know, to the basketball. There's none of that happening. And then you're like, man, I have a lot of time. You know? You don't realize how much time when you're involved and engaged as a parent, as a father, a parent, you don't realize how much time you're investing into their development, you know? And I often tell my children and told them as they were coming along, I said, you know, guys, if I'm successful as your father, it means that I would have developed you well enough to be able to exist and function without me, right? That means you are really good at making decisions, you know. And so I'm really curious about you giving us more information about this template, this life blueprint template. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So in 1994, once my wife announces to me it's plus that we're going to be parents, one of the things I thought about was, and you know, I think I see on your wall, I think I saw destiny up there behind you. But one of the things people, when we think about destiny, we don't have a plan on how to make destiny unfold. Oftentimes we wait for something to happen and then we say that was our destiny. Well, destiny is a destination, right? Implicit in the word destiny is a destination. And the question that I would ask is that, where do you want to go? So my wife and asked that question. If the world was essentially perfect, what is it that we would want for our child? And the way you frame that oftentimes is to take a look at your own life. And you say, well, these aspects of my life I really didn't enjoy, and I don't want any of this for a child. Or I'm in law school right now and I'm unemployed and I'm about to finish and people are patting me on the back telling me how great I am. But what means greatness to me is to be better than my father, which is to be gainfully employed and be able to take care of my family without any concerns. And right now, I can't do that. So what I really most want is, so my son goes to school, or this child, because we don't know if we're having a male or female, this child goes to college, which we expect this child to go to college. When they get to this point in time in their life, they're at an institution that esteems them so well that their brilliance is undeniable, and people will be running and flocking to hire them. Not like your daddy who doesn't have a job. And so we said, well, what place would that have been? And as a lawyer, you just think, well, I think Harvard. If I go to Harvard or Yale for law school, then maybe I'll be in a different situation. And then you start to unpack that. Well, why aren't you at Harvard or Yale? Well, right, you didn't do well enough in undergrad. You didn't do well enough on your LSAT. Well, Why didn't you do differently in undergrad? Well, because you didn't do well enough in high school. And then why didn't you do well enough in high school and middle school? And so you go all the way back and you find yourself right back in a place with your parents when you're a small child. And you say, well, what did my parents not know? And what can you, now that you know how this begins, what should you do? So we wrote Harvard and we got an application for an unborn child. And we took the application from Harvard and we broke it down into 3 segments. In the first segment today, we call it intellectual ambition. That Harvard certainly wants kids with great grades, but we figured, there's more than about having great grades and great test scores. It's about, can you think critically? So that was the first thing, was, can we raise someone to be intellectually ambitious? The second part was Harvard asked for in 1994 world citizens. And so we thought we've now expanded that to global and cultural competency. In 1994, we were just thinking about, can we get a child to be able to speak more than one language? So we started to move in the process of making sure he could speak more than one language. And then the third aspect was that Harvard said they were looking for students who cared for something greater than themselves. And as a person studying theology, like, I got that. I know what that is. I know how to do that. But really, it's a little more than that. But I was like, okay, I got that. So we need to raise somebody who cares deeply about humans. And so that became the template for his life, that those 3 aspects would be the prevailing things about him. That if something happened to him in his life, people would say, yeah, Naeem was intellectually ambitious. Man, he was globally and culturally competent. That dude could speak 4 languages. He bad brother. And hey, he started a foundation. He did these things. He cared deeply for other people. And that became the structure for every single thing that we did for him. So, that 16-year-old had already met all those competencies. And now we, because he said do it, because he said show other families, and we started a foundation called the League of Extraordinary Parents, of which he's one of the founding members. And that's the work we do. Now we share with other families how to do those very same things for their children.
I like that so much. The League of Extraordinary Parents. I love it. And I really like the emphasis. You kind of emphasize not drifting through life. It's not something that you just have to aimlessly go through. I remember as my children were growing, we were preparing them for, I think it was for their 14th, 15th birthday. And we wanted to be a little bit more intentional and purposeful with them. So I tried to be that way, for the most part with them the entirety of their lives, getting them to continue to think ahead. One of the things I would always teach them is, I said, guys, you need to understand, you always get to make the choice, but you do not get to choose the consequences. And there was a guy that said something some time ago. I can't remember exactly who it was, but credit to whoever you are. I can't say because I don't remember. All right, but credit to whoever. But I heard the gentleman say, you basically you're going to have to live in your future. You're going to have to live your life in your future. So it might as well be the one that you created, right?
Absolutely.
You got to be intentional about that. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I completely agree. And that's exactly what backward design is. It is saying, if the world were perfect and you didn't have any obstacles or obstructions in your hurdles in your way, which in many cases, they are obstacles and obstructions that we form in our own mind that don't exist, like that we put them in our own way. Like thinking about tomorrow, what might happen tomorrow is an obstacle, obstruction to living your best today. Thinking about yesterday is an obstacle, obstruction to living your best today. But so the goal would be, if the world were perfect, then you do what? Right. So when when you have a child and children, a great thing, I heard you mention about being a grandfather. So you're now getting a chance to do this all over again. You get to sit in the midst of an imaginative child who does not have any seatbelt, no restrictions, like a race car. There's no restrictor plates. the child can go as fast as they want to in their mind. They can go as far as they want to. They're not encumbered by anything. And if you ask that child, if you do the right things, you ask that child what that child wants to be, that child is going to tell you incredible stuff. And some stuff is like, okay, like, okay. And the goal is to never say to the kid, hey, you're being ridiculous, right? Right. Because they see stuff that you don't see, and you and I get older and we stop seeing stuff that way. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the naivety of a child. And hopefully, like, that's the goal as an adult. We can find that again. But that's what the template is exists to do, to get you to imagine the life you may have forgotten about, the life you wish you could live. If I would say to people, when your obituary is written and your eulogy is spoken, when they put those last 50 to 70 characters on your urn or your tomb, what do you want them to say? Right? Because that's future. What do you want them to say? And then if you're not living that life right now, then now is the time to start to do that.
Yeah. Wow. You know what's interesting is it brings me to, I often tell people that when it came to this, I really lean heavy on the scripture, and for the sake of principle, right? We're talking about principle here. And when I begin to look at the principles that govern scripture, one of my favorite books of the Bible is the book of Proverbs. Because I really believe that a lot of the things that are instructional there really are leaning into being intentional life. It's so straightforward. Favorites when it comes to parenting that I leaned on was the verse in Proverbs 22:6, I believe it says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, it will not depart from him. Now, of course, we understand the basis of that is really focusing on faith. And I remember, sometimes our perspective, sometimes the generation that preceded us, sometimes the perspective on training means, oh, I told that boy, I told him.
The training, it may not be the kind, it may not get the outcome you want, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but telling me is not training me, right? And so I started to understand that when we talk about training, right? Training is at least two things. Training includes both what I'm articulating, but also what I'm demonstrating, right?
Words and deeds.
And that old thing of do what I say and not as I do, man, just chunk that out of the window, because that child is going to watch what you do. Absolutely. And no matter what you say, they're going to do what you do, right? And Absolutely. So if you're the combination of those two things, right? The combination of articulation and demonstration, it causes your message, right? The consistency of that causes your message to land in the right place. With your children, they now can follow your example, right? And so as we were preparing for that 14th, 15th birthday, we took some time, and I kind of set this process up very similar to how they would do in the Jewish culture called a bar or bat mitzvah. And so we did that. And we went through a little process. We had different conversations, because this is all about preparation. I'm telling them, hey, you know what? Basically, I'm kind of giving you the rites of passage at this particular point in time. I want you to begin to look at, on a deeper level, what you were put here to do. Why were you born? What is your purpose? What do you feel, or what do you believe you were put here to do? And I had them. I gave them a homeschool assignment, and that homeschool assignment was to write for me a life purpose statement. Now I'm gonna tell you what's so funny. They did it. They did it, and they would write it, And then I would read it. And then after I read it, I'd be like, okay, that's good. Now I want you to go think a little bit more. And then I want you to write it again and bring it back to me. I mean, we went through this process for about 6 months, you know, because I really wanted them to think. Wanted them to think deeply
Right. Right.
about, I said, look at your skill set. Look at things that you're attracted to. Let's kind of narrow it down. See, because I need you to understand, you don't want to be wasting time saying yes, 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 yes to all of these things when you really can focus on, the intention for your life and the purpose for your life and what you believe your purpose is. I said,
Mhm.
because my job, I'm going to be behind you. I'm going to support you and help you develop and help you thrive. That's my job, right? My job is to help you thrive.
Mhm.
But if you're intentional about this, man, you got my absolute participation, right?
Mm.
And I remember that birthday celebration that we had. The next part of that was when they finalized their life purpose statement. Then I told them, I said, well, guess what, guys? I said, we're getting ready to have a birthday, and we set that birthday party up like a banquet, and we invited different people that were part of their lives, different people that was a part of that community, that village, if you will, that
Mhm.
was a part of their lives. And what we did was we set it up. They were the guest of honor. I mean, we decorated, we went all the whole nine for them. And then what happened was we stood up, we talked to them as parents, spoke lessons and stuff over them as parents. And then they stood up before the entire group and they read out and talked about their life purpose statement. And then my next challenge to them was, okay, so you see everybody in this room? Everybody in this room is invested in you. And we have all heard you tell us what you believe your life purpose is. Now, everybody in this room from this day forward is going to hold you accountable to fulfill your life purpose. Right.
Yep.
And it's things like that, things like
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
help the children go through life or enter that space of adulthood with intention. I used to say, my goal for my children is to leave my house not trying to figure out who they are. I want you to leave my house knowing who you are, knowing where you're going. You have a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, right? And you understand that life, forget that life just happening to you stuff. No,
Right.
be intentional, be specific.
Right.
I mean, again, that book of Proverbs is telling us about intentional, specific behavior, right? Even I even tell people, about when I'm talking about faith sometimes as a pastor, sometimes stuff that no. Faith, according to what we read in scripture, faith comes by hearing by the word. Everybody that is in the list of people that we recognize as giants or as recognized as heroes of the faith, all of them follow instructions, right? That was specific instructions,
Yep. Yep.
intentional instructions that were given to them. So I believe that's really the goal that has for our lives. So with that being said, I want to bring the attention here to something that you actually have available um, for the guest and or for those who are watching on the podcast. You actually have something that is available. And listen, I'm encouraging you to get your hands on this, right? This is called the Life Template Starter Kit.
Yep. Yep. It's not. It's just to get you to start thinking about it. So, real quick,
Right?
you mentioned two
Every
things.
journey, right? Journey of a
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. You mentioned two things, and I
Yeah.
want to, and it's related to the starter kick. So, number one, you mentioned having done the bar mitzvah for your children. We did something very similar for our son when he was 13.
Hmm.
I have what I
Hmm.
call my Jewish parents. Their names are Stuart and Janine. And I asked Stuart and Janine specifically, can you
Hmm.
share with me how to do a bar mitzvah for a black male? And they worked with me and with my wife and I should say, and we created a thing that we affectionately termed a black mitzvah. So on his 13th birthday, right. Right. So we had that, right? We had that. I won't bother. We can talk about that another time. I can tell you how that worked out, but it's something similar to what you described. The second thing when you were talking about giving the children the lesson about your life purpose. Every year from the time my son could read, and he learned to read it too. Latanya, who's my wife, and he and I would sit down at the beginning of the year and craft our individual purpose statement. We would craft what and we would do it as if when I would work with a business and someone would say, hey, I need a business plan. And I'm like, well, great, let's sit down. What are your short term? What are your midterm? What are your long term goals? Well, we did that with a child. We did that every year. I found some years ago the 6-year-old version of that document that he did. And everything he wrote that he was going to do when he was 10 years later, 16, he had done. So when you talk about knowing where you're going, right, and having instructions, and then the last thing I would say is we didn't name him until the 8th day. So this is all part of it. And we followed the old ancient traditions of waiting to see who the child is. But we also invited the people who we anticipated to be a part of this village. So we didn't know if we were having a male or a female. We had 10 names. We sent them to everybody we thought would be a part of the village. And we said, hey, listen, when this child is born, come by and spend time with them. And then collectively, we're going to name this child. And so on the 8th day, we did. His full name is Naeem, which is Arabic for benevolent. His middle name is Kahari, which is Swahili for kingly. His hyphenated last name, the first one is Turner, which is a slave name, clearly. And then his secondary last name is Bandele, which is Yoruba, which means born away from home. So now his full name is he is a benevolent king, despite being born from slavery and away from home. So we didn't wait for him to tell us what his destiny would be. We said, here's who you can and should be, and this is what you can and should live up to. You're going to be a benevolent king, right? And one who recognizes your home, and your home recognizes you. So that's really kind of what the starter kit does. It says, hey, everybody needs a village. So let's take a look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. And let's ask, are those people capable of helping you to be the best version of you? And if not, here's a plan on how you can find those people. Like, who do you want to be right, when you are no more?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. What are you made for? Borrowing for Barbie.
Yeah.
Right. What was I made for? So it's those are the kinds of things that you'll find in the starter kit.
Interesting. Wow. That's wow. Yeah. Because we thankfully had come into the understanding of what that whole thing was about when it comes to naming them. And we, I kind of teach and talk about the fact, that it's consistent even throughout the scripture. The name speaks to the purpose, right? Hence the name of, our Savior. His name in the original language would have been Yeshua. And it means that Yah saved, right? So call him Yeshua. It's really the reality of, how we focused on naming them as well, because we knew that name was like a prophecy. It's like literally speaking to the reality and speaking into who this individual, who this person is, and what their purpose is. You raise them according to what you begin to recognize. I believe the perception that we have as parents, that we begin to recognize and see in them, really, of course, what they don't see in themselves as they come along. And so you develop them in that way. So tell us, how can we get our hands on this life template starter kit? Tell us how can we?
You just go to the website, nathanielturner.com, NathanielAturner.com. And I would also, I don't necessarily want to make it a plug. I think I think Tom Joyner's show used to do shameless plug or something like that. But this is not a shameless plug. We have a foundation. I mentioned the League of Extraordinary Parents, and we're doing we're doing something really interesting. I don't know that anyone else is doing. We have a program called Ready to Read, Ready to Lead, and it's a program to bring attention to the challenges for children, particularly kids of color, particularly in Black kids in this particular situation, who fail to be able to read at a third grade level, and what that actually means in the state of Indiana, where I am. If a child cannot meet the reading demands of a third grader, but at the end of the third grade, they cannot be promoted to the fourth grade. If you can't read at a third grade level and you are the age of a sixth grader, you would still be sitting in the third grade. So it is critical what we know from third grade reading scores and what they mean for other social dynamics, welfare, incarceration, drug and alcohol abuse, teen pregnancy, et cetera. It is critical. So we have a program that we're doing here as a pilot that we expect to be able to expand, where we're actually teaching parents or coaching parents, if you will, how to make sure that their children can read at grade level, at least by the third grade. And you can find that on our website, which is lxtrap.com.
Okay. Superb. We definitely want to make sure that you guys, so please, right? One of the things I learned as a parent, as a man, was I needed to be intentional about developing myself. I cannot teach if I don't learn.
That's
right.
correct. Absolutely.
And yeah, and this is really an opportunity for self-development, an opportunity, even better. Sometimes it's just getting to the point where we can better understand what's going on, right? What is happening. And if we're intentional, we're focused in there, then we can get to in my other secular vocation. One of the things that we talk about quite often is root cause analysis. Right? Let's get down to the root cause. Let's not circle around all of these symptoms of what's going on. Let's dig down to the root of what's happening. And so I believe this is something that will just help get to that point and help us to really get out of drifting. We don't have to drift through life. We don't have to drift through parenthood. We don't have to drift through any of these things that we're doing. We can be intentional about our lives, and we will see the results of our efforts, right? We will see the results of our efforts. One of the things that even I use the scriptures a lot because I depended on them.
That's fine. Yeah.
One of the things that we are told, right, is that in Psalm 1, right, it talks about meditating upon the Father's law. All these things still talking about being intentional, right? And then it gets to one point where it says that the person who is the righteous man, right, he will be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, bringing forth fruit in the season, his leaf won't wither, and whatever he does will prosper, right? Set your mind to you're intentional about that thing, you're focused about that thing. That intention is revealed in your activity and your behavior. It is why you align yourself to righteousness, because you're intentional, you're disciplined, right? You live a life that is disciplined, and that discipline is helping to move you, propel you, there it is, toward the intended goal, right? And we know the Father has an intended goal in the same for all of us, and we just got to do the right. I've had fun today. I've had fun. I've enjoyed having this conversation with you. And I'm telling you, I want you all, man, go to the website. Again, it's www.nathanielaturner.com. www.nathanielaturner.com. All right. Go over there, check out the resources that are available. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say I didn't. I gave people like the plan, but I didn't tell them how it turned out. So sometimes people want to know, does he know what he's talking about? So like real quick,
Talk to me.
Naeem, right? Naeem, who's the son that we talked about. Naeem left high school at 16. He had already finished all his college credits, but one high school credits. I'm sorry, but one.
Mm.
He had already earned 33 college credits. He spoke 4 languages fluently, and he moved to Brazil and chased the dream of playing professional soccer in Brazil. He was there for about a little over a year or so. He got a concussion pretty bad, decided he was done messing around with his brain in terms of having a negative impact on his brain. Given what he had learned, right, his name, he says, I know exactly what I want to do now. I say, well, what's that? He said, I play soccer with kids who are in Brazilian favelas. And hey, Dad, I know poverty here, but now I've seen poverty other places in the world. Somebody need to do something about it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use technology to enhance the lives of people who've been historically and geographically underserved and underrepresented. I was like saying, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but what does that mean? He says, I'm going to go to school, become an engineer. He goes to school to become an engineer. And then he says to me, becoming an engineer won't be enough. I need to start my own engineering firm. And I need to get a PhD. And I need to do it at the top schools in the country. Now, think about this, when he's born, I'm sitting in the institution saying, I can't get a job because I'm not in the right place. I'm not in the right school. He has 7 PhD offers directly from undergrad. He gets accepted to 27 of America's top schools. He gets between $5 and $10 million in total scholarship available to him from all these schools. He goes to Santa Clara University. He finishes an engineering degree with a minor in computer science and computer engineering. He gets a degree in electrical engineering. He has 7 PhD offers. He goes to Carnegie Mellon. He gets a PhD in electrical computer engineering. He finishes in 5 years. Most students are he's got a number of classmates that started with him in 2018 who are just finishing. They're there 6 and 7 and 8 years. He finished in 5. He then said, I did say I'm doing my own company. I need to get an MBA. He applied to 4. He got into 4 of America's top MBA programs, and then he got another full ride to NYU, where he got his PhD, MBA with his focus in finance. Entering the summer of his first year as MBA, he started that company called Latimer Enterprises. It's an energy consulting company, just like he said he was going to do, that helps people have safe, independent, secure, and affordable energy. So the plan,
look at that,
right? The plan manifested, and now he's still working. Yep. So I just didn't want your listeners to hear it and say, "Oh man, well, what? He didn't tell us what happened." No. Here's what happened: 4 languages, more than $14 million in scholarship money total from undergrad through his MBA made available to him, so his mother and father could say, we don't have to pay anything for this kid to chase the dream, to do more with his life." Yep.
There you go. The proof is in the product, right? So again, you are seeing, right, that this, listen, it works, right? It works, right?
It works.
And there's no sense in, sometimes we get so bent out of shape, and sometimes we want to reinvent the wheel and all the kind of stuff like that. But man, the wheel was made to operate a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Let's just use what is available. You got something available right here in front of you, right? And for some of you, this may be the thing. This may be the thing that jumpstarts you off to moving in the direction that you really want to move, to having the success that you really want to have. This may be the very thing, right? Right there in this kit that's being made available to you. It's called a starter kit, right? The main word there, operative word there,
starter. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the operative word, start, right?
Yep.
You got to start. So maybe at this podcast, this is where you'll start. So listen, y'all, I'm telling you, this has been fun. I know you've gotten a lot of this. I'm like, I know one of the main things we say, those of you who follow us on the podcast, one of the main things we always say, right? That we always say that we want to understand. I am a good man doing the best I can, but I want to continue to make my best better. And we're here to help you do that. All right. Nathaniel,
All right.
thank you so much,
My
man, for
pleasure, bro.
joining us today
My pleasure.
and
Thank you.
and having this conversation with me has been so good. I know that those who are part of the podcast audience, I know that this has been so beneficial to them to hear, to understand, to know. And like I said, maybe perhaps you have a podcast, right? You have a podcast.
I have what's called an audio cast where one of the things that I do every day is because I can't be a hypocrite, because I can't ask a child to envision their best life and not still do the same thing. Like I'm still his tree. So each day I write my life the way I want it to be, not as it is. And that's what that audio cast is. It just a version of where I get up and I share what it is that I wrote, like how I'm still dreaming and how I write those dreams in what I call a sort of a backward design fashion. And this happened. And so I may write, hey, today I'm speaking in front of 10,000 people. And then one day I wake up and I get an invite to go speak and it's 11,000 people. Right? Or, hey, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm just going to, on the spur of the moment, hop on a plane and we're going to fly to Hawaii. And then one day you say, oh, I got to go speak here. And Hawaii's 5 hours away and the flight's $150. All right, y'all, let's go to Hawaii. So it's like you are chasing your words. And that's what I do. You say, and that's what the audio cast is.
Okay, y'all. So there it is, y'all. Plenty of resources. I always want to make sure you know what the resources are. So again, look this man up, Nathaniel Turner. Go over there, check him out anywhere where you can get access to what's going to help you be better, help you grow, help you develop. All right. Thank y'all, my listening audience, for being a part of our podcast today. Thank you again, Nathaniel, for coming and spending time with us a little bit today on this podcast. And y'all stay tuned. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, get in. All right. Tell somebody about this. Tell somebody else to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification button and make sure you're aware when we have other great episodes and other great guests like we've had today. All right. So again, y'all, stay tuned with us. All right. Don't forget, I just want to help you be a better father and love being a father the way that we love being fathers. All right. We're going to see y'all next time right here on Facts and Fatherhood. See you next.